I have heard a lot of wild defenses for conservatives who normally tell Americans to take personal responsibility. They've done everything they can to avoid their responsibility in the role of the January 6th attack. This one is the wildest. A Capitol defendant, and this is according to Riley and Harvey of the Huffington Post. This is what they shared. A Capitol defendant came down with Foxitis and FOX-MANIA after watching too much Fox News, his attorney told a court on Thursday. The lawyers say his client was laid off due to COVID and sought refuge in the subtle bosom of Fox News. And this is what his attorney said, the attorney for Anthony Antonio, who is the defendant. This is what they said. For the next approximate 6 months, Fox Television played constantly. He became hooked with what I call Foxitis or Fox-MANIA, and he became interested in the political aspect and started believing what was being fed to him. Now, Cenk, I think this is a great story to follow up what we just did with Tucker Carlson, because while this is hilarious, it's absolutely true that people who consume Fox News at that level, at that rate, are going to start believing things that are going to cause them harm. And then Anthony Antonio, basically Anthony, in his case, it's going to possibly cost him time in jail.
Yeah, look, I certainly wouldn't let the guy off the hook for this defense, but I agree with you. There's some validity to it. I have family members and friends of the family who've totally lost their minds because of Fox News. People who were incredibly pro-immigrant and took my dad in, now anti-immigrant. People who are Muslim who are now anti-Muslim. I mean, not they were pro-Muslim before, they are Muslim. And they've become anti-Muslim. There's a whole movie, I interviewed the director of it, how, I forget the exact name now, but how Fox News, brainwashed my dad. And yeah, and it's true, they're doing it to a whole generation of people. Luckily, it's the older generation, not the younger generation, but they're literally driving them crazy. Ben, 70% of Republican voters, not 70% of Republican voters think that Biden lost the election and stole it, that Trump actually won the election. Why do they think that? Because they've been listening to conservative media, Fox News, Newsmax, OAN, Breitbart, you name it. And they've been totally brainwashed into thinking the exact opposite of what's true.
And this goes back to that line that Charles was speaking about, because in this case, this gives them the ability to move the ball further and further in the minds of their viewers, right? They're no longer just trying to get them to be angry over or whatever the boogeyman is of that week. They're trying to get them angry over things that will get them arrested, get them killed, and just ruin their lives. And this is what Fox's specialty is. But I agree with you. This guy, while this is a valid thing, he's still responsible for everything that he did after that. And we have to be mindful that this is a problem that runs so deep in our country that it led to an entire group of people trying to overthrow the country. The fact that 70% of Republicans, like, it's not just Fox News, this was parroted also by Republican officials, elected politicians. And so when we have people in power in Washington, D.C. and on the mainstream media talking to 3.4 million people every night, when we have them saying things that are so insidious and so inflammatory and so ungrounded, not grounded in facts, then we have to be aware of the fact that we have a powder keg in this country that at any moment can explode into something worse than January 6th, because there are people who suffer from this, but they still have to be held accountable for it.
Look, let me go to extreme examples, just because I want to explain how readily people get brainwashed, unfortunately. I mean, look at what happened during the Holocaust. Germans and Jews were living together for a long time. They didn't get along great all the time. There was plenty of horrible, horrific stereotypes about Jews to begin with, but they weren't killing each other nonstop, and certainly not at that level. And then Goebbels came along and said, let's just lie to people and say it's all the Jews' fault, right? That the German army didn't lose World War I. It was the Jews who lost World War I for us, and that created all these troubles. Let's just tell them outrageous things that aren't even close to true. Not only did they believe it, they then killed 6 million Jews. And in Rwandan genocide, the Hutus and the Tutsis living together all those years. Yes, again, conflicts, some degree of issues, etc. And then the reason I remember the Rwandan genocide particularly is because what led it was radio hosts. Radio hosts started, who were Hutu, started saying, oh, the Tutsis are the cause of all of our problems. So you got to go get them. You got to do something about them. And next thing you know, massacres started. Then it turned into a genocide. People are unfortunately very easily brainwashed. And I'm not saying that Fox News is doing it at that scale and is going to create that kind of problem, but they are doing it they're doing some brainwashing on a massive scale. And probably on a larger scale than a couple of radio shows for sure. And yeah, I one other thing, but Ben, did you want to say something?
I was gonna say Fox News doesn't have to come out and expressly do it because there's YouTube to do it now. And they're getting, their outlets on YouTube and voices on YouTube who will expressly say that. And just that comparison that you gave, Cenk, is sobering and terrifying, but it's so clear and realistic. There is no line. And so we cannot assume that they will ever walk back from blaming somebody, vilifying someone to the point where it could go into some type of genocide. It's very possible and very terrifying to even consider that.
Yeah, and again, the point isn't whether you think it's going to lead to a genocide now. The point is brainwashing is real and it happens through mass media. And so, all right, last thing on this. Guys, don't get me wrong, the defense is absurd, right? It's like affluenza. And that worked. A lawyer said affluenza is someone who's so affluent, so rich. And in America, rich people don't understand the consequences of their actions because they never have to suffer the consequences of their actions. So that person didn't know that if he kills people, that it would be a problem. And then the judge believed him and said, oh, you're right, and he let him off. Well, wait a minute then, that creates more affluenza, right? So if you say, yeah, Fox is so insane and anybody who listens to them by definition becomes insane, hence they're not guilty of any crimes, well, then that's ironic. If you watch Fox News, you're free to go. No. You take what conservatives used to believe in, personal responsibility. You're going to prison for your crimes. And yes, Fox News brainwashes people, but that's a separate problem. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.